Hi, boys and girls, lads and lasses, and welcome back to Wednesday night's TVs and movie. And tonight it is the often forgotten Enemy Mine. And I've seen a few reviews of this, and people keep forgetting that Dennis Quaid is in it because he's so young. Yeah, I mean, but I must admit, anytime somebody's asked me about this, I remember Lewis Gossett Jr.'s in it, but I can never remember who else is in it.
Louis Gossett Jr. is the one that's under all the makeup.
Yeah, and he's the one under all the makeup. It's only because it's I suppose it's quite a famous one for him, even though this is a sci-fi movie, it's very low sci-fi.
Yeah.
And that's what's good about it. The biggest thing about sci-fi is the character, the Drac, or Jerry, is the biggest sci-fi thing in this. And considering, you think about it, he dies before half an hour before the end.
Spoilers.
Spoilers, It's only since 1985, so you know what I mean?
Yeah, spoilers for a movie that's only 40 years old.
38 years, so we can get away with that. But I quite enjoyed it, I must admit, rewatching it. I've forgotten how dramatic it is.
Yeah.
I remember bits and pieces like the wee turtle things. I remember those bits. I remember the coming out and thought Star Wars, but that was just a different thing. But it's just those type of things you remember, but the actual story behind it.
Yeah, I mean, it's another one of these ones that's basically it's got a lot in common in some ways with an episode of Babylon 5.
Yes,
the one where Sheldon gets captured. Most of that episode is a two-hander.
Yeah,
and in fact, JMS originally actually wanted it to be a complete two-hander, but they had to. They couldn't really quite do that. It didn't quite fit. But again, this one, most of it is effectively a two-hander.
It is, and it's done so well that even the other characters. I think there's only one memorable character in it, and I think the only reason he's memorable is because I've seen him in so many other of the type of roles he's played. Was the guy gets scratched. Every time I see him, I think of General Zod, but it's not. He's actually been in a lot of these ones. Was he not in RoboCop? He was one of the heavies in RoboCop.
Possibly, I don't know.
I'm just trying to remember his name. Brion Jones, he played Stubbs.
Yeah, the only names I think I actually recognise is Dennis Quaid and Louis Gossett. I don't think I recognise any of the other names.
Yeah. Well, Brion James, I remember. I'm just looking through his filmography to see what else he's been in it. I recognise, but it would be earlier stuff, not the later stuff. Because he was in things like Superman. He was in Superman, but that was the video game. He played the voice of one. Millennium, Blade Runner. He was in Blade Runner. He played. Oh, see that's video games. I wish they would actually stop doing that.
Yeah, at least make it separate when it's a video game and when it's a film or TV.
Yeah, very samey, because it just puts it. Highlander TV series he played in that, but it's on 90s, so it must have been earlier. Was he in Blade Runner? No, I can't really see a lot of the stuff. He's been in hundreds of stuff, but I'm trying to think. Tango and Cash, he was in that. But I'm sure he was in these type of roles he's played.
Yeah, possibly. So I mean, yeah. I don't, unless I sort of recognise.
He was in the he was in the A-Team, the Fall Guy, Silverado, the Dukes of Hazzard,
Fifth Element, and Leon, according to the chat as well.
Oh well, there you go. It's probably the Fifth Element I've seen. I remember him from, but it's just one of those ones. He's been in a lot of TV. Quincy, Cagney and Lacey, Christ almighty. Blade Runner, he was in Blade Runner. Aye, so he played Leon in Blade Runner. So he's played both sets of characters before.
Oh, right. I thought it was in the movie Leon. Leon was the character in Blade Runner. Was
yes, yeah. So that's where I was getting, because I recognised his face, and he's been in a lot of stuff, and he always plays the heavies and So him and apart from him, yes, Dennis Quaid and Lewis Gossett Jr. were the only two, I must admit, names I recognised. So, but even the kid that played Zammis, was it Buster? Bumper Robinson. He was good in it as well. He was surprisingly, considering he had to follow Lewis Gossett Jr.'s voice acting, because it was him. Actually, there was no dubbing or anything like that over it. He did all those voice acting, all those voice parts himself. Because growing up as a kid, he used to actually gargle with saliva and talk through it, and that's when he told the director, he suggested that would be a good way of doing it. So that was just something he used to do as a kid to gross people out and wind up his pals and have a laugh in school and stuff like that. So so that all that voicing is him. So you think about it, that the kid who did it had to actually copy some of his wording.
Yeah, the only other face I recognise in there is the guy Lance Kerwin, who was Wooster. He was in. I recognise him a lot younger. He was in with David Soul in Salem's Lot. He was the kid in Salem's Lot.
See, I remember Salem's Lot, but I couldn't have actually identified that's who it was.
No, I mean it's just the face looked familiar, and I thought I can't see where from. But when I looked him up, one of the first things there is he's Outbreak, Enemy in Mine, and Salem's Lot.
Yeah. There's a load of guys in the chat. Thanks for joining us, everyone. It's Not a Purpose, Wendology, Roman, Shield Wall, the Dragon. I'm just going through, see who else is with us. Darren as well. Melvin, deeply. And
So
that's it. But
a weird strange Norseman was in there at some point.
So there you go. Fifth Element. See, I just recognised him in all those bits and pieces. I recognised him. So apart from Dennis Quaid, and Dennis Quaid is, I saw one of the reviews basically saying people forget it because he's so young in it, because he always plays the middle-aged old grumpy guy in a lot of movies. Whereas everybody had to start, a lot of people started younger. Not everybody, because there's some people who start in their 40s and 50s to act. But there is a lot of people out there who have started quite young, and you don't really hear about them, or they don't make their mark until they're older. And I suppose it's actually they've had to go through everything to get there.
Yeah.
So,
I had this thing called a career, and I've actually done this thing called working for it.
Yeah, exactly. So it just goes to show he's actually in that. But the story of Enemy Mine has been told multiple times in multiple things. I think one of the first ones I ever saw of that type of story was an old Twilight Zone. And it was a Japanese soldier and an American soldier trapped in the jungle. And it was the two of them having to work together. So that type of story has been around for a long time.
It's got so much in common with the Star Trek episode with the Gorm that I keep having to remember. No, they're two completely different books.
Battlestar Galactica as well.
Battlestar Galactica,
the one with Starbuck and the Cylon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was Starbuck's leaving episode. Dwight Schwartz, Faceman.
Faceman. Dirk Benedict.
Dirk Benedict, that's what it is. So his leaving episode, and it was the Enemy Mine type one, so him and the Cylon. But you get a lot of good, I suppose, dramas out of that genre, of that type
Yeah.
of story. And it just goes to show there, it was just so well done. They obviously took it to the extent where that the two of them basically sort of brought the two warring factions together, the humans and the Drac, and sort of not so much. They didn't tell you it caused the war to stop, but it was a case of implied that because the Dracs were all returned at the end of it, and he was there for the naming ceremony, implied it.
Yeah.
So it did.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and the good thing is, like any of them, it gives you the option. I do like this one for one particular reason. Like the ones with the Japanese and the American, or the Cylon and Starbuck, and even the Star Trek. Apart from Darmok and Jalad Tanagra, where there was minor understandings backwards and forwards. This one, you had both of them learning each other's language.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the other ones, because it's filmed in America or England, they always have the Japanese or the German learning English. Obviously, we know why they did it, because it's easier. They don't want to have one speaker, the Japanese didn't having to subtitle it, or German and subtitling it. What they do is do it for the audience, so the audience could understand it. So I'm aware of that, but this one was actually quite good because they still spoke English, but they talk about, they say things, try to go backwards and forwards, and then he teaches them about the language, and then they just talk about learning the song and learning the language, although they never really use it, and it uses it in bits and pieces here and there, which was quite good. And I liked it for that particular reason. It didn't just go one way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And consider we're only 80 years away from that happening. 2092 to 2095 he goes missing. So there you go. It's only 80 years away.
Wow.
Because I had to check if it had, because it found his presumed dead and recovered. So it was a 3-year gap, but it didn't tell you when he was born. But if this happened in 2082, even assuming he's in his 20s, so it's 2060. He's roughly 2060, 20, something like that. He was born. So not far away, 38 years, 38, 40 years away before he's born to actually do that. Yeah. Obviously, we know TV shows are actually just things from the future beamed back so we can watch them.
Of course, exactly.
Sci-fi and stuff like that, and it's stuff from like fantasy, or just basically from alternate worlds beamed in. So we are aware of all that. So we're not just saying just because it says 2092, because otherwise 2000 AD is a great world that we've missed. But that's just a comic. Judge Dredd.
Yeah, we all know that's where you got your helmet from.
Yeah, exactly. It was beamed in.
Well, it was, if you go by the general, the normal standard of the character is approximately the same age as the actor, unless it's clearly made different. Dennis Quaid was about 30.
Yeah, well, there you go.
In 1985. So
even saying
Davidge was about 30, yeah.
Yeah, so that means 1982, so 1952, he was roughly born. So 30 years from now.
Yep.
But there you go. It just goes to show, because Judge Dredd, I like it when I find it weird that it's Judge Dredd from 2000 AD, and then when they're actually talking about it, on the movie, they basically try to set it further into the future.
When they beat me to it.
Thinking, what you say?
We had some. We had a bot in the chat, but when I reported it, when he beat me to it to delete it.
Right. Okay. So we had something in the chat we shouldn't have.
Yeah. Well, it came up because I was looking at it, and it came up for review because there's more. And then just as I blocked it, I was going to go back and report it, and it disappeared. And it said deleted by Wendy. So
yeah, thank you. So I'm because I'm on StreamYards, it's not popping up StreamYards. If you
I noticed that it's confused.
Yeah.
What's the comments on StreamYards? But actually have to flip a window to have YouTube open to actually respond in the chat.
Yeah, well, see, the good thing is I can respond because of that. But even anybody that's got admin rights can respond, but they would respond to me. So I basically get the blame for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what did you think of Enemy Mine? Not so much. Well, we've obviously basically said that the story type is quite thingy, but the way it was handled. What did you think of it in general?
I mean, I haven't seen it in a long time since I couldn't. Unfortunately, I've got it on DVD. And the couple of copies I did manage to acquire first. I don't know if they were just big files or what, but didn't seem to run that well. It's good, an interesting story. I mean, I remember, I don't think I'd seen much like it when I saw it. I would probably seen it sometime in the 80s or early 90s. But yeah, it's I mean, it's a good story. I think it's quite well handled. It does what science fiction does, but no, I'll slightly rephrase that. It does something that is done best in science fiction.
Yeah,
which is makes you think about something. If in a way it's an anti-racism story.
It's
yes, to an extent.
The humans typically have the nicknames or derogatory names for.
But I mean, as in it's literally an anti-racism because they're racist against each other's races.
Yes, that's
as in also it's the standard racism, xenophobia. You have to make if you're going to go to war, you kind of have to dehumanize your enemy, otherwise your soldiers are going to have trouble actually fighting.
Yeah. That's the thing with war. The war, it's set up. You have to. Hence the reason why in 2022 with the social justice warriors.
Yeah,
that's why they get all that propaganda to rile them up against their enemy.
Yeah,
yeah.
The proverbial 2 minutes of hate. But
yeah, and I was actually looking at what Melvin says. He thought Men in Mine was a remake of the Robinson Crusoe on Mars. That was the one with the monkey, wasn't it?
Yep.
That was the one. Monkey
in space.
Yeah. It's only I remember they had the things that kept doing it, and the monkey kept copying them. That's why it stuck in my mind. That one.
Yeah, so I haven't seen that one in a long while either.
I've not seen that now. I've not seen that in at least a decade, probably maybe more, maybe 15 years. I've not seen that one, but it's just one of those things that stick in your head. But yeah, I think that actually. It's the same idea. It's got that same trope of the two of them lumped into it to survive, even though they were from. It's not always enemies, different cultures.
Yeah,
it's always best when it's the enemies, but sometimes it's you've got the different cultures who don't communicate and misunderstand. So you could have, I'm trying to think of the one. Was the Robinson Crusoe on Mars, was one not a slaver and the other one was a slave owner, the slave?
No, Robinson Crusoe on Mars was just which Robinson Crusoe on Mars was I think sort of like the proto. I'm not sure because there are people in there, but I haven't seen it in a long time. But I think partially it was sort of a part of that storyline was sort of proto The Martian, where he's got to survive on Mars.
Yeah. Or was it actually? See, there was one. I'm sure the.
Well, having said that, you have got a character called Friday,
I see. That's what I think.
Yeah,
It's
so I think
that. Hence the reason, but I think it was more along the lines of the one where the two prisoners who don't like each other have to escape.
Sidney
The one
Poitier
with
one.
Sidney Poitier one,
Yeah. I know the one you're thinking. I can't think what it was called, but yeah.
Yeah. Something. No, it wasn't Something Run. It was.
I personally prefer Black Mama, White Mama for the same sort of story, but then with the women are much better looking in that.
Yeah. Was it Something Heat? Was it not Something Heat?
In the Heat of the Night?
The Heat of the Night. Was that not the Sidney Poitier one with the prison break?
Heat of the Night was the Sidney Poitier.
King Gang.
I'm not sure. I know the film you're talking.
I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that's the one, the Robinson Crusoe on Mars I thought was more like that, because it's only because I remember him. He had the chains that kept clipped together when they were getting hunted. That's why the monkey kept copying them. I thought there was the two of them initially. One of them.
I think it's Defiant ones you're thinking of. In the Heat of the Night, it was the first of the Virgil Tibbs ones.
Right. They call me Mr. Tibbs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it could be the Defiant one.
Two chained together escape comics, White and Black, was learned in Arnold to new
Sidney Poitier and Tony Curtis.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought Robinson Crusoe on Mars was more like, rather than like Enemy Mine. But the Enemy Mine, I must admit, to me, out of all those type of stories, although there's been really entertaining ones, like the Battlestar Galactica one was really, they were a lot of them entertaining one. This one is probably to me, the best for dramatic acting, because of the storyline is a very similar type of storyline. Two of them thrown together, having to survive, but the friendship comes through. This one, I think, for dramatics was better, because you've got the war ones have got a very war tropish, so the drama is very secondary to the fact that the friendliness, then the war kicks in again.
Yeah.
And either they have to separate, where you've got the British and the German, they'll separate to their own lines and they'll meet up and they'll just have that friendship remembered. The American and Japanese, one of them gets killed because of, or the two of them get killed, I think. It's that type of thing. So you get things happening in them, whereas this one, I think, for dramatic acting was better. And considering the story starts where they're at war, and the part I had a wee bit an issue with was they're at war, they're fighting them, and more come in, but he shoots him and his plane starts going down. And for some reason, it seems, right, I'm going to follow him down, even though his co-pilot is saying, you need to pull up, this is dangerous because we're getting dragged in. But for some reason, it's almost like, I'm going to get you because he shot down another pilot, even though that other pilot and them had shot down other ones. It's almost like, we're allowed to kill you, but you're not allowed to kill us. And I'm going to fence to it, which didn't make much sense considering what was happening. It was almost like he took offense to it, and then because of that, he killed his co-pilot because he just would not let it go. It's almost like this one pilot was to blame for everything. It just to get them into that position where it starts was a wee bit contrived. It would have been better if it was a case of, if the other pilot, maybe something happened and they went spinning off, and then they deliberately went down to dive in and destroy them, even though they knew it was the escape pod, and he deliberately dived in and shot the escape pod. Then you can imagine them getting a bit more annoyed in doing that. But just for a dogfight, where they've killed a couple of them, he's killed one, and yet he gets annoyed when one of them kill. It just seemed a wee bit contrived at that point. But once it got onto the planet, that's when it started.
Hmm.
And I can understand they just wanted to get on the planet quickly, so they didn't really care about why and whatever. But I thought it was quite well done within that.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I agree. I mean, I suppose things they need to, they had to set up the animosity quite quickly, didn't they? I suppose. So
Yeah.
you've got to set up and say, okay, yeah, you know, these guys are taught to hate each other so much that this guy's killed his mate, so he's going to go in and he's going to get tunnel vision enough. Shiv will put it that that he's going to take out, and as a result of which it's his own fault he gets stranded.
Yes, it is true, the tunnel vision part, but the tunnel vision part didn't seem to be the factor on it. It was almost the animosity. You just killed him.
It was the animosity that causes tunnel vision rather than
But the fact is, if each of the fighters were a single fighter, I could understand it. But when you've got someone telling you, so you've got two people in that plane, and he's turning around saying, we need to stop this because we have to this could be dangerous, it's getting worse, and we could crash, and he still does the tunnel vision, then it's not just a case of his tunnel vision, he's actively ignoring his pilot.
And it's as you say, it's more than that. It starts off with that, but it builds up even more the fact that he hates the Dracs so much that he's been taught to hate the Dracs so much.
Yeah.
Which again it's something you can do quite well, but the problem is, I mean, this was like 1985, so
they just set it up dead quick just to get him onto the planet. That's probably what it was. We didn't have any idea of that. You've got two sets of people going out to dogfight, so why would you get overly annoyed if they shot one of your people down?
Yeah,
it'd be sad, but you would expect it to happen. But it's almost like a case of, you're not supposed to do that, and I'm going to make sure you never do it again. That type of thing. Whereas it just, you remember the Battle of Britain?
Yeah.
We were talking, you'd have all the pilots sitting there all chatting away, going in for their breakfast. Somebody doesn't come back, they would put a ceremony, maybe put something on the thing just to represent they knew their friend had died. But it wasn't a case of there was over animosity against the German pilots because they expected in a dogfight people die. They'd be like going over in the trenches, going over the top, and then getting annoyed because the people who you're shooting are shooting back. It just seemed a wee bit overly contrived. That's all I was saying. If they had set it up and they had longer to set it up, where he had that mindset and
that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Yeah, they might have set it up longer if it had been a longer movie or mini series or whatever.
Yeah, it was. They could have even spent 5 minutes at the beginning just people talking about, oh God, I hope I'm not his co-pilot today because you know what he's like with the Dracs. He'll just to do the point. But, and then his character, after he gets captured, it just seemed, I suppose, setting it up, they tried to actually set up parts too quickly. Right, you can understand, so the pilot's over there, I'm going to go over and kill him, because then he stoats around, drops his gun, then tries to get other ways to kill him and stuff like that, the flames and stuff like that, and you're sitting there thinking, well, in effect, he's just actually proved that he's very difficult to kill, because he came through the flames, he would bob up in the middle of the flames just to check what was happening, climbed out the water, through the flames, no problem. Yet you're meant to think that they implied he was an aquatic type creature because of the lizard, so he was going in and out the water quite. However, he could deal with flames just as easily. It was things like that. it was just sort of, it was a juxtaposition. So if he was going to do that, but then you've also got the Dennis Quaid's character, who very animosity gets knocked out, and he wakes up and he's almost angry because he's not getting fed. It was almost like they were throwing bits in very quickly to set the scene. And that's the point. They just probably pushed to the point where the two of them had to work together. And once the two of them had to work together, it slowed it down and let it gain the story arc. And I think that's the problem. They were too busy trying to get it to that point. All this part at the beginning, they just cut down and just did the bare minimum. Right, you get angry, follow him in, shoot him down, he escapes, you hit his ship, you crash, then you trying to kill him, then he'll attack you, then you'll get things. Now we can start the story. Away we go.
Yeah.
And this happened. And I would have preferred either they started this 2 ships down and then they sort of gave you backfill with it as they were talking to each. I bet you killed him. Well, it was a dogfight. You were killing us. We were killing you, and you could see the animosity and just how the two of them are having to survive, but they're still not friends, and it builds up throughout time. There's a lot of different ways you could have gone down it, but I think rushing forward to getting in there would have been it's understandable because they had the idea of the story and they wanted to get to the story. Because the longer they spend setting it up, the shorter they have. What, an hour and a half? Most movies up until probably in the last 3 or 4 years. Anybody over that an hour and a half, people thought, it's a hell of a long movie. 2 hours? We got to sit 2 hours for that type of thing.
Given how much it was interpersonal, much longer probably would have seemed to drag.
Yes, so I can understand why they rushed it forward. But I must admit, the very first time I saw this, I didn't even think about that. The part I thought was dragged was the middle, where the two of them get to know each other. So I could quite understand it. So I did see it in my late 20s, early 30s. And it was one of those things I did think it dragged in the middle because I was all for the sci-fi part, so the space battle and then the fighting at the end and stuff like that. I thought, yes, slow, but I could understand the story and got to that point. However, growing older and watching it more, I enjoyed it more because the storyline in the middle, which I thought was probably the boring part, was the more interesting part. The bit at the front, the bit at the back were less interesting. Maybe because I actually realised that once we get married, we actually have to actually make friends with our greatest enemy. But that's just men and women for you.
I do hope your good lady doesn't actually watch these streams.
No, she comes in, says lightning, bumps out, get a spike up, that's it. But the thing is, they mention that in here. Jerry's character turns around and says, when he was talking about you can't die, I'll be alone. He says, you're always alone in there. That is why your human species has been split into 2. So you have to find your one. So he mentions that within that, because they're obviously the parents, so they become pregnant at a set time. It's no like, for instance, they get impregnated. They're pregnant and it happens at a time. So it's a perpetual cycle, as it was. Hence the reason why their lineage is actually important to their culture, because there's no families coming together. It's just my father, or my parent. It's not my parents, and this is this parent, and this parents, so that type of thing, the family tree. Whereas that's why he said that's why he was always alone, because in there you're always alone because you've been separated from your other half.
Mm.
It was a nice wee way around it. And
Yeah.
they did better than Star Trek, than movies, with
Wow.
the things like let loose the dogs of war, taken from the original Klingon. Anytime then Quaid said something, he says, "Yeah, I've heard that before." Our thing is, "Yep, the truth is universal." So basically, yeah, our culture did it first. No, our culture did it first. Well, it doesn't matter because it's out there everywhere. The truth is universal, so it doesn't matter what culture comes up with it. The other culture will have it as well.
Yeah.
And I suppose that the truth is like a pyramid. All these cultures seem to come up with the same thing all the time. So
Yeah. Well, there's something about them.
So, but the thing is, I think is if someone's young is watching this, it will be a boring movie. They might like the sci-fi bit at the beginning, even though even that's quite turned down. It's not. This is not your high action sci-fi.
Yeah.
Extravaganza.
It's not something you can.
Aye, you've
It's
got a bit
not
of
something
sci-fi
you
at the
can watch
beginning.
while you get your head stuck in your phone.
Yes, you've got your sci-fi at the beginning, which is quite low-key sci-fi. You've got your main story, and then you've got your bit of action at the end. So if you are not one to pay attention, this is not the movie for you. If you enjoy a good dramatic movie, doesn't matter if you like sci-fi or not, it is good. You have to have your head in the game, I suppose, for sci-fi, because you can't watch this. Like my wife, we could watch the one about maybe war or two prisoners or things like that and enjoy it, even though the two of them don't like each other and they're fighting all the time, but they're still having to work together. She would enjoy it. But if you put a sci-fi slant in it, she would go, "Yep," because the sci-fi part would just ruin the rest of it, because the Cylon, the Darmok and Jalad, anything like that, even this, the fact is the makeup, the alien look, the way he's talking, or the sci-fi parts at the beginning, some people just go, no.
Something else. I've just realized when I looked it up. It's actually when I looked it up, and the first one I got was the Enemy Papers, which is Enemy Mine, the Tomorrow Testament, and the Last Enemy. And apparently, Tomorrow Testament and the Last Enemy are actual sequels to Enemy Mine. So it looks like Barry Longyear actually wrote sequels to that one as well. So that's just been added to my reading list.
Yeah. I've got, I'm actually reading Bobiverse, and then I've got a couple of books coming through.
Yeah. I'm starting to try to read it because I was on the third of the Bobbyverse ones, and when I lost my place when my old Kindle crashed, so I'm trying to start from the beginning. I'm not sure how far in I was. I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm on the third book again.
Yeah.
Fourth book I'm not as keen on because it is good, but I like the initial layout of the expanding Bobiverse. The fourth book is all about a particular one.
Yeah, it's particular search, isn't it?
It's a search for Bender. So it's after Bobiverse book 3, I will stop and go and do the other two books I've got, and then I'll come back to it. But I'm waiting for a load of other books coming out because I'm actually sitting at the end of each of them. But I don't know if I've got the tripods to read as well, but it's the same idea. We'll add another one on. Although I say read, when I say read, ladies and gentlemen, I mean audiobooks. Somebody reads it to me.
Well, I've got all three of the tripods. I've also got there's a short prequel called The Year the Tripods Came.
Yep.
So
there's 4 books in the sequel, in the thing, the 3 books,
and then to read them when I can.
I like Shivo, I like the idea of that their song of their family, as it were, would had to recite their heritage, and they could go back 170 generations. I thought was quite good. So the song gets more and more, and I think it works because there's not two groups of family. So it's like, I suppose it's like the old Bible story: so and so beget, so and so beget. And it was always just
Didn't they do that
it was doing the meal line. They did it with was it Red Dwarf? They did it in.
No, I'm trying to think. Wasn't there a Star Trek episode where they did a little bit like that, where McCoy introduced them as and then his parents and his grandparents' names or something. I think there's someone. Which is Spock, son of Sarek and the Man, and then McCoy, son of such and such. I think it's Star Trek, but
it could be.
I've definitely seen a similar idea somewhere, but again, it's not going back 180 generations.
Yeah, but I did like the idea of that because it was as a class, I suppose, a non-binary race. They were both they reproduced without fertilization.
The interesting question, I'm trying to remember it because the first place I came across anything that was that was other than two sexes to reproduce was John Norman's Gore books, which the first few were very good science fiction. He's better known for other aspects of his stories later on. But where the bad guys who introduced them, they're actually a three-gendered race. You've got males, females, basically what you've got is you've got males that provide the sperm, females provide the eggs, and then you've got a semi or non-sentient, basically, literally baby factory. It's an incubator gender.
They did that in Star Trek.
So they've done that in others as well.
Yeah.
But the thing is if you've got, because a long time I can't remember, if you've got a race that's self-fertilizing, the risk of getting
yourself.
Yes, exactly. But more to the point is the risk of getting horribly boring and real. That's not going to be very good for genetic diversity. Therefore, it's not going to be. It's not going to be very good for rapid evolution, because effectively each creature will literally be a clone of its parent.
Yes,
which makes you wonder how far back they go. Also, do they all descend from one original? Do the Drac have their version of mitochondrial leave that all Drac are descended from?
That is one of those things.
But it's one of those things which is an interesting idea.
It's good for population control because they know exactly how many you actually cater for.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's
one, then that's going to have one, and that's going to have one.
Yeah,
but that's fine that you have one. They didn't even actually have the.
I was going to say, yeah. I mean, do they have?
Do they have two?
More than one,
do they have 2 or 3 cycles of having children?
I mean, because otherwise, because again, your population's never going to grow unless you literally clone.
Yeah.
Again, it's an idea that sounds interesting, but when you
think about it,
it makes you have to think, okay, it's got implications that you have to bear in mind if you're thinking about it. I mean, if they have more than one, then that's your population
can grow.
Increases.
And it's basically at war. Why would you do that if you hadn't reproduced? Because then your population drops. Every person that gets killed. So why would he have gone, as he said, it happens. You don't know when it's going to happen. All you know is it happens.
Mm.
So why would they send anybody who hasn't reproduced out to fight? So their society doesn't make sense in that respect either.
Yeah.
Because that all they're effectively doing is cutting down their population in a war, unless they actually wait until, right, you've already bred, you can go and die. So if you die, it's not a problem. If you don't, you come back.
Have you ever read Larry Niven's Known Space series?
No.
He's very good, and he's got a race called. He's got this whole habit of making very difficult to pronounce things, but he's got this race called Pack, the protectors, and they only reproduce under certain stimuli. They reproduce. They have breeders, but they reach a certain age, and they have to have a certain route. I think it comes from in the first place that calls them to go to this next stage, and they don't. And basically, what happens is it turns out, and this is in one of the very early ones, that basically these guys live near the core of the galaxy, and when they go to this protector stage, they're very, very long lived. And basically, it turns out that humans are pack breeders. A lost ship, which because we don't have the route, cut, and etc. But it's very similar sort of thing where you get to a certain point, and then certain things set in and completely change. It's like, is it? I think there's an Ursula K. Le Guin one, which does something, which does it the other way round. I think where they're two gendered, but they are literally transgender. Because if I remember right, I don't think I've ever read it. I've only read about it, but I think what they do is they have a child, and when they've reproduced, they change gender, and then reproduce again. If they reproduce again, they change gender back, if you like. So they literally swap. But I think it's something like that. It's literally very similar idea. Only there they change, so they've still got the genetic. And it's something.
It's things like that just show that people think something's a good idea, but it doesn't work unless you think about it. Like, as Shieldwall says, I think they wanted the Drac to be more like the frogs on Earth that reproduce asexually, but frogs only do that if there's no other the opposite gender available, whereas the Dracs do that all the time.
Wasn't that what the basic of Jurassic Park, that they made all the all the dinosaurs female, because of that.
Yeah,
I think that was a real world scientific plot in. I'm not surprised. Komodo is a very difficult word to learn. Yes, I know what you mean. But yeah, it's a real world. I mean, it's something that only science fiction and possibly fantasy can do.
Yes,
which is
fantasy and science fiction for a reason.
Yeah.
Because in reality, it's not going to help. It'd be like watching. Was it? It wasn't the Twins. Was it Twins? No, it was the. What was the one? Arnold Schwarzenegger. Remember? Got pregnant.
Oh no, Mr. Mom.
Mr. Mum was
Twins was him and Danny DeVito. I can't remember. I've known it because I don't think I've seen it.
It was the one he got pregnant. But it's that type of thing. It was unless humanity goes through a genetic mutation stage.
Yeah.
They're basically once we get hit with a meteor and it skips and the certain radiation goes down, and the ones that don't turn into zombies go the other way and reproduce on their own. So that bunch can feck off, and this bunch can go feck themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what
Junior,
is
that's what it was. Thank you, Alec. Junior.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is it's something I think that these in the last couple of decades has become a weird thing of a very real but still thoroughly theoretical science of xenobiology.
Mm-hmm.
Because no, we don't know of any biology on any other planet, so you can't study it.
Aye.
So extremely theoretical, but the sort of thing that follow the logic through and what would logic, what as far as we could tell would work. The same way you get some of these fantastic illustrations.
Yeah, you've had
what life might look like on other planets and so on.
What was that guy? Brian Cox. Did he not do one? And it was all about what they think life would be like. So they had all these artists telling them what they had the scientists telling the artists what they think, then the artists creating it.
Well, if you, I mean, it's not a new idea.
It's not
because if you go back to, I think it's 2010. Arthur C. Clarke describes these various life forms on Jupiter that are.
2010? That's not that far back, 12 years?
No, 2010 Odyssey 2.
Right.
The second 2000. Sorry. No, sorry, no. I was in. I think it's 2010 because he shifted in 2001. They go to Saturn, and in 2010. No, it's retroactively changed to Jupiter so he can ignite Jupiter. But he describes in the book, so that was, I mean, what? Late 60s, early 70s, he wrote 2010?
Early 70s, I think that was.
And he describes these life forms, which are basically giant balloons. And you watch something like the Cosmos, the original Carl Sagan's Cosmos, never mind the updated version with deGrasse Tyson. Again, they've got these illustrations for what these things might, what
xenobiologists think life look like another planet.
What it might look like under these conditions, under different, under slightly different conditions or slightly different evolutionary pressures and so on and so forth. So it's one of these weird things where science fiction and science are very bounce off each other, perhaps.
Well, you look at, remember Evolution, the movie?
Yeah.
Basically about them all, just the evolution was just exponentially expanded. So basically they would go from worms or bacteria to worms, or single cell to multiple cell organism, then suddenly you'd be dinosaurs and it was all that. It just basically, and that basically took it to the extreme for fun effect. Didn't take it seriously at all because they made it into a comedy, and it was a really good one. I quite enjoyed the Evolution for that.
Well, if you think about it, though, I would say just to think about it is we've kind of point. I mean, the most famous example of bad aliens is a gorilla wearing a diving suit helmet in Plan 9. You know, the old thing. The old thing from classic comics of pulp comics of cat people. Or basically people with cat hair, and this sort of thing, which is, but then looking at the Drac here, are we certain that they're actually aliens? Could they possibly be Homo draconis? No, what's it? No, what are they called? Could they possibly be the Silurians from Doctor Who? I mean, look, they look. I'm saying they're called Dracs for crying out. They look very. They simply because they're reptilian, and the idea of the Silurians, the Sea Devils, etc., in Doctor Who is that they are evolved dinosaurs. What would what
Well,
the,
you
what the main
already
life
know
form would have.
the Drac in this one are evolved lizard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but I mean, it's effective. Yeah, I mean, the effective of that is what would quote humanity unquote, i.e., the dominant form of life on Earth now be if that meteorite hadn't hit? Quite possibly would now be evolved dinosaurs.
Yeah.
But it's something I think that science fiction tends to do better now than it used to do.
Yes, only for the simple fact is, apart from anything else, science fiction used to be able to do it when it was in the media of books.
Yeah,
because they could be very descriptive and do an explanation. At the movies and TV shows at the time, it was sort of limited by the technology, so they couldn't show the things they probably wanted to show.
So you get the carrot, you get the man in a carrot suit in Lost in Space.
Yeah,
you get really
you would get
really
people with silver skin.
Yeah.
Now, whereas now they're quite happy. Look at that in 1985. That was prosthetics. God knows how long that would have taken him to put that on every day of the shooting.
Yeah,
it's not as bad as some because they've got the gap round the mouth, so they've effectively turned around and says we need to leave his mouth so he could talk, so nothing gets on it, and it's just makeup the rest of the way. But still having to put that on, get it glued so it doesn't actually start flapping around. It takes a while. Then to get the makeup around the eyes and stuff like that to blend it in.
Yeah, it's as Melvin said there. It's a fascinating. It's a fascinating thing to think about. Well, I find it so, simply because we are only working from one example.
Yeah,
we can rationalize and we can say, it makes sense, but I mean,
the only thing I would argue with Melvin there is intelligent species. He says dominant species. I'll let him off. It's Colin I'm arguing with. Intelligent species. I wouldn't actually class the ape as the intelligent species nowadays.
Well, no, I know the dolphins were intelligent species. That's why they all left.
Yes.
Last message was sun and swordfish. No, but one thing is that I remember there's an old phrase, I really wish I could track it down. It's the most unlikely thing about little green men. It's not that they're little, it's not that they're green, it's that they're men. But the counter argument to that is that the humanoid form is a very good generalization form. You've got it's upright, so you can see along. Visual senses are the best senses we've got for distance. Let's be honest, we can quite literally see thousands of years in the past. We can literally see 1,000 light years away when we look up in the sky. It's the best distance sense. Sound is a good one. Having the main sensor organs as close as possible to the brain cuts down on the speed of messaging. There's a lot of reasons why the humanoid, but a genetically humanoid form is a very good specialization, is a very good generalist form. But we are, as I said, we're working from the one example, which is why I think it's so, when people can actually, the scientists can actually think that far outside to say, okay, well, what would be something entirely different?
Yeah.
I mean, that's where
that's where it works. But it's the same again, getting back to it, is going for the Dracs, the body type and the language and everything all works. I think the only time they failed was the reproduction part. And that's the only way it failed. Also, you take any baby, lizard, dinosaur, bird. How many babies are actually born that they can eat the same as what an adult can eat?
Yeah, true. Not many.
Not many.
Well,
because it usually has to be masticated at the minimum. So, like, he basically going here, just try it, and it wouldn't eat, and then he took it, put it in the mouth, and put it in. So it was implying the mastication. So it had to be chewed up first, so the baby could digest it. Which is a nice wee point, but it sort of doesn't work for. I suppose you've got a lot of like egg, birds and mammals, birds and reptiles. In effect, they might be weak when they come out, but once they basically snakes and stuff like that, lizards away, and they grow up. Very few are in family pairs. It's usually a case of scatter. There's very few actually is cared for.
well, I mean, there's some. I mean, there were some fantastic ideas. I mean, Melvin, in answer to your question, read Harry Harrison's West of Eden trilogy.
See you later, Shearwalt.
Get out of Shearwalt. Read, if you've not read it, Harry Harrison's West of Eden trilogy. I think back in the 70s, it's a very old series now. On that has that very premise. It starts off where the dino, and basically you've actually got caveman-ish level humanity sharing the planet with dinosaurs, and the dinosaurs, their technology is very biologically based. So, for example, I think they do have planes, but their version of the planes are quite literally specifically bred flying lizards.
Harrison, stainless steel rat, didn't he?
Yeah, he did write the stainless steel rat, same author. Yep. He also wrote again a very prolific one. He also wrote one of the first books on the idea of the asteroid ship, the lost ship. Was which one was it? I can't remember what it's called now. But basically, he starts off. You've got these two Aztec level civilizations living in either side of a valley, and they're not allowed to meet. One of them does meet a girl, and things progress naturally, and you find out, it's very clear done, why they're not supposed to meet. It's a very early-ish example of the generation ship genre, the generation ship that's forgotten what it is, if you like.
Yeah. It's like the 17 and the TH.
Very similar to Tesh and 17, yes.
Yeah. But there you go, there's a question. If the meteor hadn't killed the dinosaurs, do you think there would be intelligent dinos flying around in planes today?
That's what I said.
I would say the opposite, because how long has humanity been on the intelligent gravy train, shall we say? How long do they think since we were cavemen?
I was listening to I'm listening to a contemplations on the Lotus Eaters on that, about the history of humanity, and I think
even with the early civilization,
I think the figure they mentioned was 300,000 years.
Right. So we've basically come from dumb animals.
We came up from, if I remember correctly, basically our ancestors at the time of the dinosaurs were small rat-sized rodents.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. So in effect, since 55 million years ago?
Was
it 55? million years ago.
65 million years, I think.
Something like that. Right.
Yeah.
But so the mammals came out and then So even if you give a good estimate for when humanity started getting a bit of intelligence to start using stones and rocks and tools. So even if you go back, the earliest man ancestor, see, even if you say 1.5 million years and we've got to the point where we're flying planes. However, how long did they say the dinosaurs reigned?
Yeah, I mean,
There was the Triassic, the Jurassic, and the
I think 100 million.
Yeah.
Like
so
they
in 100 million, they hadn't got the intelligence where we've got it in less than or just about 1 million. Even if you go back 2 million, you see what I mean? That's why I don't think if the dinosaurs hadn't wiped them out, there would still be the spark of intelligence would have been there because they had 100 million years to get that intelligence, where we as a species got it within. They're saying 300,000.
Well, 300,000 years from now, I think is what they were saying. He's certainly not intelligent. He's modern man, effectively. 300,000 years.
Right. So if you do 1.5 million for
1.5 billion probably.
Right. So if you say 1.5 million, we've gone from being apes to man, and we can fly, and they're already in space. How come in 100 million years you never get a species like that? I don't think if the meteor had not taken out the dinosaurs, it would have been there would have been no intelligent life on the planet.
Shall I play devil's advocate? How do we know they weren't and they haven't been destroyed?
I've seen the TV dinosaurs. All the archaeologists dig them up, find a big TV. It's 14 feet across, and think, nope, we'll bury that again. Don't want to the actual. The actual closest thing to a sort of a realistic, if you like, idea would be that there was an advanced a relatively advanced civilization, but all trace has been, but they left. I mean, if you go for example, there's a Voyager story where they come where they've got a race of dinosaurs in a spaceship. Yes.
Yeah, literally, not the Doctor Who one, but it's literally
Voyager.
It's Voyager. They've literally got one, and they're literally descended from a race that was linked to the dinosaurs. So the idea is that they had an advanced race.
Yeah.
But all civilized, but they left, and all traces have been lost in 65 million years.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is
impossible, but.
See, I the only reason I'm going with the well, there you go. That's what I was actually about to say.
Yeah.
Birds of the dinos. So you see, I mean, so the dinos didn't disappear. Their giant relatives disappeared, but smaller dinos just changed. You've had crocodiles on the planet for millions of years. They've easily documented. And how intelligent are they? Yes, they're sneak buggers and things, but they're still not actually sitting there on their iPhone saying, I'll meet you down by the river. Right?
They're not sitting there making TikTok videos about various pronouns.
No, but even if the fact that as I said, they're sneaky, they're not sitting there on a phone going, meet you down by the river. Come alone. Right, dinner's on its way. I've just ordered one in. I've just ordered an Italian.
I tell you what, though, I would almost put the reverse answer to that, which of argument, which I've actually seen as an answer to the Fermi paradox and to the Drac equation. Dinosaurs were around for 100 million years without intelligence. Is intelligence necessarily a survival trait, species-wise?
Obviously not.
I mean, It's not required. If the species lasted that long, we've been around for 1.5 million years, 2 million years as sentient intelligence. But we're now in a position to
going just now, that intelligence could wipe
exactly.
Out.
So it's an interesting question. I mean, it's a question of pressures. I mean, if the dinosaurs hadn't been wiped out, how much of the fact that we became intelligent was because of environmental pressures? I mean, we had to move down from the trees when the savannas, when the jungle started drying up, because the climate had changed. Shocker! It's not a new idea. It's a very interesting point. Again, it's something we can never know.
Exactly that thing. No matter what people say, they can never know. It's like, I like a lot of these scientific programs. I like a lot of the mythological programs as well, because I just laugh when somebody says, "Yes, the Earth happened this way. This is what created the Earth, and this we know this and we know that." No, your theory says that is the most likely. Doesn't mean that's how it happened. It is like turning around and saying that we know there was a continent of Pangaea, and we know it was all one big continent, and then it suddenly split up here and here. No, you can actually say, based on what you've theorized in the last 100 years, that based on that, you could say that this is
it's the most logical. It's the most logical
explanation, but it's when they come out as if this is fact. We know. No, that is the most likely intelligent understanding of it. But you cannot say that's what it was because you were not there. It's like me turning around and saying that, well, the Romans blew glass this way, and I just make up something. But that is, if I could say, it was actually, all they did was that they got all this sand, they heated it up, and then they just laid it flat. Yes, that is a quite logical way, and some have actually stated that is how they made glass.
It's like
it is based on what they understand of glass just now.
It's like anything else. It's the best explanation that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Even evolution is the best explanation that we have. It fits all the evidence
that's the thing. It fits all the modern evidence that we have.
Yeah. The thing is, it's the best explanation until something else comes, until something better comes along. Yeah, exactly, Melvin. It's a fascinating idea. We don't know what the pressures would have been.
And that's the thing as well. As you said, even with a meteor coming down, there was other animals fighting for the same stuff. Did humanity already wipe out its most intelligent counterparts?
Well, the dinosaur killer was the last of five great extinction level events.
Yeah, the TK boundary.
Yeah, it's I think it's the last of the great one, because I know there have been 5 of them.
Yeah,
because I've seen Cosmos.
Yeah, the 5 extinction events.
Yeah. So if you imagine, what would have happened if just one of those hadn't occurred?
Yeah,
the evolutionary pressure would have been different, and
that's where we're looking at it. Right, is the Dracs. We started all this with the Dracs. Actually, would like to do a stream based on, similar to Gary and Doomcock used to do, and that they're doing at the moment with Quarter Black, Gary, and Adam Kriegler, when they're talking about the stuff that's on Netflix. I love.
I've not seen that, but yeah, I want to see that one because that
is good. That is good.
That's an interesting idea to me. The
mythological and the ancient architects, the ancient technology, ancient civilizations.
Yeah, I mean that makes a lot more sense to me. And I'm not saying I believe it. I'm saying it's a lot more believable and a lot more sensible to me than the bearded guy saying, "I'm not saying it was aliens, but."
Yeah, but the thing
no,
is,
sorry, I've seen Stargate. I still do not believe that the pyramids were written as landing ships for spacecraft.
Yeah, but I know spaceship landing ship. There's also the magician and the magic of the gods.
Lines. Oh, so from Donikin. I read
There's a lot of things out there that you have to wonder, but when as they keep on saying, the science is fixed on that. No, sorry, the science can't be fixed on it because it's not science. If you say the science is sort of fixed on that, so you can't actually when he's looking at something and saying maybe this happened, and I say nope, science is fixed on that. You basically are effectively turning around and saying is you're not willing to do any more research to see if anything else has changed. You've just said that fits, so we'll stick with that. So that means science is failed, because if science has to prove its point, which it does every single time, so if another theory comes up, science can turn around and go, well, based on these theories, this all meets it, so that's correct. Based on the new theory, 95% of it fails, so that theory must be false.
That's why scientific that's why while we have Newton's laws of physics, we have the law of gravity, we do not have any new scientific laws. We have theories and we have hypotheses, and a hypothesis may become a theory, but because unless it can be totally and utterly proven, and unless it cannot ever be disproven, it's a theory, not a law. Science has become a lot less pedantic in that, if you like.
Yeah.
But the thing is, what irritates me, I think, more than anything else about this, we don't know how they did it. It must have been aliens' idea.
Yes, exactly. And Melvin, the Graham Hancock's Ancient Apocalypse is basically what Gary and that are talking about. I've watched it. It's really good.
Oh, I haven't. I'm gonna have to watch.
I enjoyed it, and as they say, that it basically covers probably about 60% of the stuff that he has, and they sort of break him in at certain points because they don't let him go off on his chat because he's got a lot more information. They've obviously, this is just the first season. I think it can go a lot more and let it expand on other stuff bit by bit by bit. Right, Wade, thank you for joining us. Cheers.
Hey. Oh, she
but
came back and
stuff is good, but it's the same idea.
What annoys
it's all coming back to Enemy Mine. The fact is, based on all what we understand, the Dracs couldn't.
There's a couple of things there that the Dracs that doesn't. What annoys me about the ancient aliens thing is not the fact that I don't believe in aliens. I don't know. I have to go with the state of what my understanding of is scientific knowledge, and if scientific knowledge changes, then I will change my thoughts. But at the moment, we do not know of any way to travel faster than light. The distances are humongous.
Yeah,
aliens, almost certainly. Interstellar travel. I'm prepared to accept. Yes, there may well be theories that we haven't discovered yet, and they may know more than we do. And great if they do. Fantastic. I'm not discounting it.
The alien
thing is that if you say aliens and everything, our ancestors 10,000 years ago were no less intelligent than we are.
Mm-hmm.
You are doing our ancestors a great disservice by saying, well, we don't know how they did it. That's all you don't know. You don't know how they did it. You don't know they didn't do it. And they were just as capable as we are. They just didn't have as much advanced knowledge as we have in some areas.
Yeah, I can understand, but see, even the alien thing is, they say, some people say it's aliens. Some people, believe it or not, say it's time travelers. Some people says it is alternate dimension.
Yeah.
Well, they're not aliens from another world, they're aliens from another dimension. The problem is, unless you can reasonably understand why they got here, how they got here, and why it couldn't be the people from the past that did it. Just because, as you said, well, with our modern technology and trucks and diggers and bulldozers and all that, we couldn't lift those stones. Well, we actually could. It just would take a hell of a... It's not like you can say, right, what's the biggest stone that digger can lift? 5 ton. Okay, we've got a 30-ton boulder. We need to get from here to here. Well, that can't lift it. That means it can't be done. No, that can't lift it. But maybe with those 500 guys, they could build a ramp and it could drag it.
Or they could put it on logs and move it.
That's what I'm saying. So, but then it could drag it. That means that in 500 years, they would say, well, they only had diggers that could do this, so they couldn't have built that. Well, based on that simple explanation that it can drag it instead of lift it. So you put enough work. I understand where they're going with certain things, like, for instance, if they do it in the top of a mountain, how the hell did they get 10-ton rocks up there? I can understand arguments like that. And Teotihuacan, where the rocks look as if they're all molded. I can understand where they're going with. We still don't know that technology. There's nothing written down, but based on the fact is written language wasn't the thing then we just don't know how it's done. But turning around and saying aliens, no. Ancient civilizations, I'll give you, but aliens, no.
What goes back to what in fact the ancient civilizations thing.
They also had massive.
Yes, we've all seen The Simpsons. Just don't try to tell in truth that the pyramids were built by slaves, because they weren't. But it completely similar in fact to.
Yeah, when you're right, brilliant, but he's probably.
I like that. I think, but no. What was it? Yeah, the thing is, it's the ancient civilization, especially. I mean, I've not seen these yet, but as I understand it, is he saying that they were before the last ice age, or just at the end of the last ice age?
His theory, and well, he's talking about the ancient apocalypses and stuff like that. But one of his main theories is there was an ancient civilization. And when he's saying an ancient civilization, he's not saying ones that had mobile phones and airplanes.
Yeah.
It may have been more
advanced than everyone else at the time.
Yeah, more advanced, and they maybe were more earth magic. So, like, resident, as Adam Kriegel is saying, is they found that different things can resonate at different things. So, like the pyramids, they reckoned at one point each of the pyramids resonated at a particular wavelength. So if you go in with a stomach ache, well, go into that pyramid over there and lie there for 2 days. That resonance will clear that. Or you've got cancer, you go into that one and it'll resonate and it will actually clear that. And that's what they were saying. So it's all to do with resonance. So they're saying is maybe that advanced civilization had better understanding of the nature of the world and could see things, could tell the weather, they could do this, they could do that. They could move larger rocks because they had things that they could do, not necessarily 500 guys in a big whip to pull a 2-ton rock. They might have actually had something that they're saying, some people said levitation. I even think that's out, but better ways of transporting stuff that we wouldn't actually. Some people have actually thought, do you know, that might work, or that sounds a wee bit far fetched, but have you tried it? It's things like that. So with the way I would look at that, the way they're saying it is, something happened. What they're saying is, see where the 3 continents. So you got Asia, you got America, and you got Africa, and the 3 continents where the tectonic plates meet. There's an island under the water. They're saying at one point, so you had all the land masses, which they know were out of the water because the water was lower, or so the land masses were higher. So they're saying things like with the things that are happening, the land masses move. Hence the reason why you've got like Dogger Bank. They reckon that used to be no sea in there. Doggerland. So there was no sea in there. So what they're saying is something's happened that's sunk down. So they're saying
all the sea level, and the sea level as well.
These shelves where the 3 things is an island, and they're saying outside the Pillars of Hercules was Atlantis. Maybe that land was, and as the Earth's moved, that part's just sunk, and it basically
all the sea level. Yeah. Well, there's sorry, Pete.
No, that's what I was saying. Is basically they're going down that route. So they're saying an ancient civilization, and that's why you've got. And so some escaped it, went that way. Some escaped it, went that way. Some escaped. That's why you've got Egypt is building pyramids the same time as China's building pyramids. Same time as South America's building pyramids. The same time as they're building pyramids in North America. The same time as they're doing it in Russia. And they're saying, well, it's coincidental. All these cultures, roughly about the same time, started doing pyramids. So what they're saying is, it may be there is a ancient civilization that went through a catastrophe and split. So ancient, basically ancient apocalypse. So what happened? It split. That's
there's a series of books, 3 books I read a very, very long time ago. Called The Seed Bearers, by an author called Peter Valentine Timlett, and they're also somewhat there is a degree of pagan psionic magic in there as well, but the basic idea is it starts off with the Atlanteans, and in the first book Atlantis is destroyed because of for various things, but partly because they're using psychic powers. There's a lot of that. But then what they do is they spread out. I mean, Atlantis sinks, and they spread out. And some of the land in Britain, because he's an British author. So again, it's a similar idea. And the thing is,
those books are based on the ancient civilization myth, and that's And that's all it is. So somebody's actually, this is not a new mythology that Graham Hancock came out in the 60s. This is things that have been around for a while, and they've basically been listening to all the stories, collating them. These authors have heard these same stories and thought, a book round about that would be quite good, and we can see.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Atlantis did it because they basically says Atlantis was actually based on another. It was on another.
Well, the only real problem with following up on and looking for Atlantis is that the Atlantis mythology was probably written by Plato purely as a philosophical political thought experiment. However, there's no saying he didn't get the idea from sources he's heard from elsewhere. And you get, for example, the fact that various peoples and religions around the world have a flood myth. The flood myth in the Bible is very, very similar to the flood myth in the Epic of Gilgamesh. And there is a theory that perhaps that is a memory of, depending upon how far back you want to go, perhaps even of the Mediterranean filling up, because at one point the Med wasn't the sea until the sea and until the sea at the Pillars of Hercules sank enough, and the water at some point eventually from the Atlantic just spilled in. The land changed enough, and the land spilled in. Sorry, and the water spilled in and made the Med. What I was thinking of earlier was that the thing is that all this ancient stuff, if we're going that far back,
well, there's floods in a lot of mythologies.
Yeah,
even the Indian ones. There's the flood myth, and
yeah,
but they're basically. I would definitely watch it. The Gary in Quarterblack and Adam Kriegler are covering it, so they've only done 3 episodes so far. They're doing 1 episode each, and they're even their coverage of it, because they talk about that the episode 3 was all about the floods, the great flood myths and stuff like that. So that's all covered in episode 3. But what I'm saying, watch even the Robotics coverage of it. It's actually discussing it again.
See, that's the point, Alex. It was the Atlanteans that sold them the blueprints. The Atlantean, but no, you're right, Melvin.
And anyway, it can be ancient Greek. It got the blueprints because blue didn't exist as a color. It would have been gold print.
Don't.
They used to call blue. They used to call blue gold. It's no case of blue didn't exist. They just called it a different color. They just called it a different.
They couldn't see blue. Yeah, but yes,
people assume because there's no blue color means that there's no blue. They just called it something different because they call it the golden sky. So you can look at that and say what they meant is blue sky.
Yeah. But I mean, Melvin, you've got a point. Is as you said. I mean, and the pyramids in Egypt are very different to the pyramids in South and Central America. The South and Central American ones are stepped. The Egyptian ones famously smooth-edged.
No, but the Egyptian ones, the early ones, are stepped.
Yeah, true.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
The thing is, what they're saying, some people forget is they say they suddenly came up with all these pyramid designs and built them. Well, they didn't. Because you look at Egypt, what the people forget is there's early pyramids in their steps, and they're a lot cruder. And gradually they got to the point where they could build the smooth pyramid over there. So if you look at the old ones, you can see them gradually.
And they're not. I mean,
bigger and flatter.
They're not entirely smooth, because you can still sit on the various levels of the pyramids. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, I was only being slightly facetious earlier on when I said about the dinosaur civilization. If something could, I mean, we absolutely know that the sea levels have changed because and things have sunk because we've found. I say we people have found cities. They've found villages that are underwater. So if something can change that much in 2, 3, 4,000 years, what the hell is it going to do in 64 million?
Of course. And you look at it, basically the prediction and the landmass like that. Yeah. So what happens if something was there 60 million years ago? Would it have under the crust because there's predation?
The capital of the dinosaurs. The capital city of the dinosaur civilization may well be buried under the ice in Antarctica now. It's moved.
But the thing is, it could have also been gone due to predation, because we know that basically they're saying it like land masses are moving like maybe 1 centimeter a year. Some of them 1 centimeter a decade. They're still moving. These land masses are still moving. So if their land masses are moving, then what would have happened? Where does all the extra Lango, it basically goes under. So the two shelves come together. One goes down, one goes over.
Yeah.
Simple
Oh,
as
yeah.
that. So basically, what happened with something a city was here 65 million years ago, comes here, goes underneath. So it could literally be absorbed back into the earth.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so there's
Yes,
things
exactly.
like that. The problem is we'll never know. And
No.
we're going to stop that conversation there because this could go on for hours and hours. We're going to go back to enemy mine, and I'm going to be finishing up in 5-10 minutes. That's the reason why I'm dragging it back. So what I'm going to do is put a bookmark in that, and I think what we should do, get together, try and get watching Ancient Apocalypse.
Yeah, definitely.
And Alec is just coming in for the last 5 minutes.
Oh, son.
So I've just seen
I'm only
Melvin's
being
comment.
sarcastic. Yeah, I'm only being sarcastic with Melvin. It's just the thing is, you got to laugh.
Yeah. Well,
the intelligence life used to live in Dundee. It's not there now. But basically, you're talking about, remember, an Aberdonian leisure centre's 2 sheep tied to a stick. So Scotland's not got a lot of intelligent life. We're fighting back, but we're actually we're getting basically the crust of stupidity. We're here. Going over the top.
Oh, please, yes. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, as to quote Monty Python's Galaxy Soul, and I think I mentioned I came across a really fantastic one that had been done a few years ago now, but I only come across it a couple of weeks ago on YouTube, and it was Eric Idle doing it with Brian Cox.
Yeah,
and Brian Cox was, of course. It was obviously deliberately done for comedy convey, but Brian Cox was going, sorry, what? The speed of correcting all the signs, but it's interesting. Hope's intelligent life out there because there's bugger all down here.
Yes, but the thing is, as well, the good thing is with programs like movies like Enemy Mine, we don't need to worry about intelligent life. We could just go back in time. We can time travel back to when there was intelligent life.
Yeah,
in
when
Hollywood.
it's intelligent life in exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, what would you recommend? What Enemy Mine? What would you give it based on what you remember of it as a story?
As an action movie, I give it 5 Jennifer Lawrences.
So
I've decided that's my new way for because apparently there was no female action before Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah, even the female starship pilot in this movie wasn't there before Jennifer Lawrence.
Exactly. No, it was Jennifer Lawrence.
Just in disguise.
Yeah, probably 7, 8. Simply because it was at the time it was a very very new type of story. I've not seen it before, and very well implemented.
Yeah, I quite agree with you. I would give this an 8. Science fiction wise, it's not a great science fiction movie because the science fiction's only there as a backdrop. So it doesn't need to be a great one. I would say an 8, just for the simple fact is the storytelling and the acting from both of the main characters. Even Bumper Robinson, the kid who played Zammis, I thought that was good. The 3 main in this, I thought acted very well. And I think based on that alone, I would take it up to 8. But Melvin give it a 6.5 to a 7. What about you, Alex? Since you're
I've never seen the film.
Well, get right. No, it's okay. I won't tell you to get. You'll just be mine enemy. No, dad joke. So what we're going to do is finish up there, and I would recommend for the future, it won't be a Wednesday or a Saturday, but we'll maybe try and organise something, even if it's a pre-record or something. We will do an Ancient Apocalypse one. Get a chance, if you get a chance, Alec, Colin, watch the Ancient Apocalypse on Netflix. Even if you have to sail the 7 seas to get it, have a look at it. Melvin, I would recommend watching it as well. Anybody recommend watching it? And then what we'll do is we'll organise a stream and we'll talk ancient apocalypse and spaceships and dinosaurs and civilizations, theories in general, all the stuff that we're not allowed to talk about. Let's talk about them, but not tonight because I'm literally.
Yeah.
I seriously want, thinking about it, I actually would love someone who could do voices to do a match-up and do a cross of Daniel Jackson saying, I'm not saying it was aliens, but it was aliens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just get one of his thingy, but doing it to Jack.
Yeah.
But they probably would have said it somewhere in that. I'm sure they would have. Right, so ladies and gents, boys and girls, thank you very much for joining us again. Next week, since it's coming up to Christmas, it is the Muppets Christmas Carol. Not the Muppets Christmas, it's the Muppets Christmas Carol. That's
yeah,
what
see,
it is.
Michael Caine trying to keep a straight face for the entire film.
Yeah, that's the one, Michael Caine. So join us for that next Wednesday, same time, same place. Saturday, we have got Let's Talk Geeky again. And this time, I might actually remember to post-it notes there now saying, don't forget to play the bloody intro.
No, you need a note saying, don't forget to read the note below. And the note below says, don't forget to play the bloody intro because you missed reading the note last week.
I did. I know, it was sitting there. And I forgot. It's just one of those things, getting old. And see, the thing is, last Saturday, I was really busy. So I was rushing in at the last minute to get in. This weekend, I've got a friend coming up. So I'll be able to in and I will need to take a break for a half an hour in the middle, which you guys will have to cover. And then I'll be in back. And that's the only thing I've got planned. So next week, I'll be rushing nowhere. Might be Italian everywhere, but I'm rushing nowhere. No.
That's all right.
Yeah. Right, so join us again Saturday for Let's Talk Geeky. Until then, ladies and jelly spoons, remember, I'm not old. I'm classic. From me and the guys, good night.
Good night.